Hey guys, I wanted to talk a little bit about what services you put on your website, specifically why we recommend that you have content samples if you want to write content, if you have content samples, separate from your copywriting samples. The first reason really is that it's important that you're able to demonstrate that you know that there's a difference between them. Some clients might, especially smaller business clients, might not understand that difference. But when you start to pitch bigger companies, more savvy organizations, if you have content mixed in with your copy, it's going to look like you don't know the difference, and that's not a good look for you. And in fact, a lot of the people who call themselves copywriters but are not actually copywriters are the ones who send through their portfolios and it's full of just content. And obviously that's they don't know it, but it's pretty embarrassing for them. So you first of all, you need to separate it because they're two different things. They're two very different things with two very different purposes. So they shouldn't be mixed in together. But the thing is that if you want to be a copywriter, primarily writing copy, your website needs to be focused on copy, and the things that you are highlighting should be copy. Now, I'm not saying that you can't have content on your site, because like I just said, just put it in a separate section. You can still offer content to your clients, just perhaps on a case-by-case basis. You want to bear in mind that content simply does not pay as well as copy. And that also means that doing more content than more copy will burn you out faster, because in order to make as much money as you would as a copywriter, you're going to have to write a ton more content. There's a reason that content is known as a churn and burn industry. The barriers to enter the content writing market are very, very low. And therefore, the rates that most people charge, or the rates that most people are willing to pay, are very, very low, which means that content as a whole is a churn and burn industry. So I just want you to bear that in mind. If you're like, ooh, content feels less scary to me, I'm sure it does, I'm sure I can understand why it would feel less scary, but that's part of the reason why it's not paid as well, because and I don't want to say this in a disparaging way, but it's something almost anybody can do. Whereas copy is different. It requires a much higher skill set. Now, part of the reason though, that if you do want to offer content on a case-by-case basis to your clients who have already worked with you and with whom you have demonstrated your strategic copywriting skill, that's a different thing. And quite frankly too, that means you will be able to charge for your content at your copywriting rate, because first of all, they know you as a strategic and effective copywriter, and it's that same brain using that same level of strategy to write that content. So if you do want to offer content to your clients, you can do that on a case-by-case basis, but you want to keep it separate on your website, because these are two different offerings with two very, very different purposes. Remember that you want to make your website easy to understand for your clients. So if you are pitching copywriting to your clients, they should come to your website, and it should be vastly targeted toward copywriting, because that's what makes sense, right? That's why content would be a secondary thing. Once you start getting into this road of, I'm going to offer this, 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 outside of copywriting, I mean, like, I'm going to offer editing and proofreading and content writing and SEO. And once you start offering all of these things, then you start looking a lot less like an expert and more of someone who is just throwing stuff at a wall to see what sticks. Whereas a copywriter is a very skilled and very specific skill set, and it's a very specific industry. And if you're pitching your copywriting services, you want someone to come to your website and see copywriting services and see you selling yourself as a copywriter. And I don't mean selling in a bad way, but just demonstrating your amazing skills as a copywriter. When you start getting into this road of like, oh, I want to put proofreading and copy editing and da-da-da-da-da-da on my portfolio site. These are all services. They're going to be needed by different types of clients. If someone is looking for copywriting, they're not going to be also looking for proofreading, because proofreading is something that is related to content writing. And copy editing is a very specific skill set and a very high level skill set. And if you are at all curious, go Google like a copy editing test or something like that. I think like the New York Times has one or something along those lines. Copy editing is a very specific and very skilled level of, it's not just looking for typos. It's a totally different thing. And people who are looking for copy editors are not looking for proofreaders. These are two separate things. So I know that it can seem like, well, if I just put all of my services on a website, then I have a much better chance of getting hired. That's not at all true. When you put a bunch of services on your website, it looks, number one, like you're not an expert in any of them. And I know that that's not what you're trying to convey, but it looks like, well, anybody who's saying, well, I can do all these things, a savvy, even just a savvy business owner or marketing director or anything along those lines goes, no. Someone who is skilled and trained to the level that I want as a copywriter is very unlikely to also have that same level of expertise in all of these other places. So when you're putting a ton of different services on your website, it doesn't make you look like, look, I can do all this stuff. It makes you look scattered, and it makes you look desperate, because when you're putting all these services up, you're trying to cater to anybody and everybody, and that's not who's going to be going to your website. People are going to a website because they want to hire someone who is a combination copy editor, combination copywriter, combination proofreader, because those are all different needs for a company. And these are all totally different clients. So once you start to add a whole bunch of stuff to your website, it gets scattered, it gets unfocused, and a client doesn't see you as an expert anymore. So back to my original point, can you have content on your copywriting site? Yes, absolutely. Just keep it in a separate section from your copy portfolio and make your copy portfolio the focus, because that's what you are, a copywriter. Don't try to mix your message. This is not the place for a blog about the traveling that you've done, anything like that. If it in any way distracts from your main goal, which is the main goal of your website, is to get a potential client to look at this and go, I'm interested in hiring this person, and to get in touch with you. Or if you've pitched them, to look at your website and say, yeah, I am interested in hiring this person, and then to respond to your pitch or respond to your follow-up or anything like that. Anything that distracts from that has no place on your website, has no business being there, and is only going to keep you from getting work.